I see that they are instructed but not assessed. I need to make sure that there's an assessment. So then I go back and talk with the teachers about that. Like, why are we not assessing this? How do we know the growth in this area? Because I see a weakness in the standardized test. So there's a lot of ways that you can use CurriculumTrak to really even make the teachers aware of what's going on. Teachers say, why do I have to change it? You know, if it's done and the curriculum hasn't been revised, why do I have to change it? Well, our students change every year. They change every day. And so I want them to really use that as a working tool, a living document, so that they can make sure they're taking them from where they're at to where they need to be.
Welcome to the BJU Press Teacher Edition podcast, where Christian educators are encouraged and inspired as we bring you interviews, practical ideas, strategies, and answer your questions about teaching in today's culture. And here's your host, Jenny Copeland.
Have you ever been introduced to an educational tool and thought, okay, wow, that is so helpful. And maybe it's something that would streamline your work for you. Maybe it would automate something, maybe even just a simple management tool that really looks insignificant, but it does great things in a classroom. On the other side, maybe you've been introduced to a tool and you kind of wandered away thinking, yeah, that didn't make any sense. That's not a fit for me. Only to be introduced to it again. And on that second look, you really do see the value. Well, today we're going to talk about a tool that can be a game changer for educators. I'm guessing most of you have already heard about this tool. And while some of you use it, I'm guessing others have passed on it, not knowing all the incredible things that it can do. I'm glad you're joining in. Welcome back to the Teacher Edition podcast. It's summer, but for educators, school is always on the horizon. I'm glad you're choosing to tune in even over the summer. You know, summer's a great time to just get caught up on episodes, to keep growing and learning as an educator. As always, I want to invite you to find us on social media. We're Teacher Edition Podcast on Facebook. On Instagram and TikTok, we are Teacher Edition Pod. But also take a minute to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out on a single episode. By the way, if you haven't done so already, check us out on YouTube, where now you can not just listen to the show, but you can also watch it as well. And one last reminder, that's go to our website, teachereditionpodcast.com. You can get more information about the podcast, sign up for newsletters, and even listen to the show right there. You can also submit a question. We have some questions that have come in. I'm really looking forward to including those in some upcoming episodes. Keep those coming in. As we talk about this great educational tool today, I am so excited to have Tina Stelogeannis with us. Tina holds both undergraduate and graduate degrees in education and has been serving at Meadowbrook Academy in Ocala, Florida since 1996. She has served in many roles, including a kindergarten teacher, a vice principal, and now she's serving as the school administrator, a position she has held since 2008. She serves in many educational capacities outside of Meadowbrook, including being a board member, working with accreditation, and so many other things. I always enjoy the opportunity to bump into Tina. We seem to run into each other at various educator events and conferences, and she's always so knowledgeable, but so kind and thoughtful as well. So Tina, I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jenny. I'm so honored to be a part of this today.
Well, so I have set the stage for this great educational tool, and we both know educators. Educators love tools that will be a help, any way to support them in their very demanding work, and they are all in. So today I want to talk about CurriculumTrak. I was introduced to CurriculumTrak when I was an administrator, and that's when we were working through our accreditation process. And of course, the accreditation process as a whole is huge. There's a lot of expectations, a lot of time and effort, and honestly, ultimately, CurriculumTrak brought some organization, I guess, to the table. When it came to all the mapping and extra features and such, I think the context of all the high stress at that time caused us to overlook some of the amazing features of CurriculumTrak, just in the midst of the aggressive push to get everything else done. I also believe that CurriculumTrak didn't have as much baked in at that point, or so many features back then. And I say all this because over the past year or so, I've been much more heavily exposed to CurriculumTrak and have been just so impressed by the incredible features and the connections that are already there, even to our own BJU Press materials for those who use our materials, because we partner with CurriculumTrak. And honestly, Tina really helped introduce me to some of the amazing ways that this tool can support teachers and administrators. Tina actually shared about CurriculumTrak at a recent event, and I made myself a note to have her come on the show and share that with our listeners so you all could hear about those great features as well. So Tina, let's jump in. Now, in the introduction, I mentioned that probably a good number of our listeners have heard of CurriculumTrak. But, even at that, I'm guessing that while they may have heard of it, they don't necessarily know what it is. So if you don't mind, let's start there. Tell us, what is CurriculumTrak?
Thank you, Jenny. I want to go back before I introduce what CurriculumTrak does for us and how I use it at our school, because I loved what you said. There's so many people that have probably started to use it and then stopped, or that they have heard about it, but they were a little intimidated by it, possibly, because that was where I was back in 2012. But then accreditation comes in and they want to see that we have a web-based curriculum mapping tool. So I started looking around, and CurriculumTrak was that tool that I wanted to use for our school. And so we went in and we jumped all in, and it was undaunting. However, the effects of it and what we're seeing come out of it is tremendous. So it really helps us, or helps anyone that uses CurriculumTrak, to streamline the process of curriculum development and management. It really does also help with vertical alignment. There's just so many parts of CurriculumTrak that I didn't know about at the beginning, and I'm learning still after many years of using it. They are evolving, and I keep learning. So that's the education process, right? It's continuously learning and continuous improvement. So that's what I love about this web-based mapping tool.
So most people, but especially educators perhaps, want to know, what is the practical use of a tool? You can show all the bells and whistles, but if it wouldn't have a functional impact at my particular school or in my classroom, it's a no-go. So let's talk about how CurriculumTrak can be used. Tell us about your school, Tina. How does your school use Curriculum Map? So you mentioned it's a mapping tool. So how do you all use it to map your curriculum?
Well, BJU has a wonderful scope and sequence, but with accreditation, they won't just allow us to show any of our curriculum scope and sequence. They want to see that we have mapped it out. So with CurriculumTrak, our teachers will go in and they will do the framework of the curriculum. So they're going to do the timeline, and they're going to do the objectives and benchmarks and standards. And what that really does is to help them know how to review their curriculum, make sure it's the cutting edge, how to refine their curriculum, and how to reflect on what they are teaching and how the curriculum decisions are based. So those are the three areas that I really have our teachers, and we do workshops on this every year, but I really love the review, refine, and reflection component of CurriculumTrak, making sure that we're taking an outstanding curriculum that we have with BJU and going through the process of mapping it out vertically so that we know we are giving our students everything they need to know going to the next step. It also allows, one of the areas that you put into CurriculumTrak is the state benchmarks or standards. You can either pay to get those done by your state, which we did, that saved us a lot of time, a nominal fee, or you can manually put those in. And so then the teachers know exactly by grade level what they are teaching. There's an instructional button that as they're going through their curriculum, they're looking through their lesson plans and things like that. What are they truly instructing? And then what are they truly assessing? Another component that you can use CurriculumTrak for, as an administrator, I use this quite often as I'm doing a scope and sequence. I'm looking at some of our standardized test scores and I'm like, oh, they're low in these areas. So I go back into CurriculumTrak. They have this amazing button called search. And the search button, I type in, let's just say fourth grade is low on fractions. I type in fractions. I look in the fourth grade. I'm able to see where they're learning it, where it's introduced, where they're applying it, and have they been assessed. Sometimes I'll see that they're instructed one time, but assessed 4 times in areas. Okay, That's great. But sometimes others, I see that they are instructed, but not assessed. I need to make sure that there's an assessment. So then I go back and talk with the teachers about that. Like, why are we not assessing this? How do we know the growth in this area? Because I see a weakness in the standardized test. So there's a lot of ways that you can use CurriculumTrak to really even make the teachers aware of what's going on. Teachers say, why do I have to change it? If it's done and the curriculum hasn't been revised, why do I have to change it? Well, our students change every year. They change every day. And so I want them to really use that as a working tool, a living document, so that they can make sure they're taking them from where they're at to where they need to be and ready for the next level. So I enjoy so many components of the framework and setting it all up. And again, it's a living, working document that you just can't let it go stagnant.
I love how you focused on you're mapping what you do. It's not just what the book says to do, or it's not just because the book covers it, but we know that we're all doing things differently in our classrooms or in our schools. And I remember coming through the accreditation process and thinking, yeah, it's so important that we not just say, well, the book says it, just because BJU Press materials say it, then we have it covered. No, we have to track what we are doing. So I love that focus on that. And then that 3-step process, the review, refine, reflection. I mean, that's like daily in the classroom. We need to do that. But so often as educators, we just get in, we know what we need to teach and we just push through it and we don't take time to step back and look at it. And it really sounds like this tool can really help you do that. I love the example you gave of looping back around and saying, okay, why are we struggling with this? So since we're talking functionality, let's dig a little deeper into that. You started talking about the structure of standards and benchmarking and how you can use that. Is there anything else you can tell us about the structure of the standards and benchmarks in the CurriculumTrak?
Yeah, when you're going through the standards, you can actually use that for vertical alignment as well. You can see what grade level a certain concept is being taught and when should it be mastered. So looking at that vertical alignment is also very important. Again, you can use the search tool to look at any concept so that you can go back and look, where did they get it and where should they have it mastered. Another thing that I love about the scope and sequence part of it is really where, say you have a 3rd grade teacher, and we at our school only have 1 class per grade level. So we do have collaboration meetings, we do let them talk, but we don't have that horizontal, right? Teachers meeting together for the same grade level. So this allows them to go back and say, a 3rd grade teacher to say, okay, 2nd grade finished this. They should know this by the time they get to me. What do I need by the end of the year to make sure that I have them prepared for 4th grade? So there's that cross-reference and seeing where it's done. I had a teacher, she actually started this year in November. We had a teacher that had to leave for a family emergency. And I put this teacher in right in the middle, right? And she comes to me and she said, Miss Stelogeannis, here's an issue that I'm having. I'm running out of time because I need to get so much done before the Christmas break. So I looked at her and I pulled up CurriculumTrak and I said, okay, let's look through this. You've already introduced this, or it was introduced at the beginning of the year. You're going to see it again in quarter 3 and quarter 4. So don't worry about it right now. Don't worry about this. Move on. She came to me again right before she finished filling in for that teacher. And she said, oh my goodness, there's a research project that's coming up. And I don't think that I'm going to have time to get it done. And I said, all right, again, let's go back to this. We went right back in. And then I went to the 4th grade teacher and I said to the 4th grade teacher, how hard would that be if she just didn't get time to do this? She said, don't worry about it. I really love this area. I'm going to hammer that next year. So please, if anything, do this chapter and that chapter, but skip this one. And so I think the collaboration part and knowing and feeling assured what they're getting in the previous year or the following year really helps the teachers to set their mind at ease. They have a group that needs extra help in a certain area, but the curriculum says keep moving. Well, we don't want to keep moving because then we lose people. So I think that CurriculumTrak and how we align and how we input all of our information and we track our curriculum, I believe that is essential to making sure we're meeting our students where they're at.
I really like the big picture idea here. And it is comforting to know somebody's covering that. I know going through our accreditation process, we sat in a room and said, okay, what do you cover? What do you cover? Because just because it's in the book doesn't mean that they get to it or they don't cover it. And it was reassuring. And yet we still did find some, oh, you're teaching it and you're teaching it. And yet we're not getting that covered. So making that adjustment. And it sounds like CurriculumTrak is just, does everything but vacuum the carpet when it comes to letting everyone know who's doing what and when it's going to be covered. That sounds great. So we often hear the phrase data drives instruction. We want to see how our students are doing. We want to know if the objectives are being met and where we're struggling. And while it's important to know how the students are doing, it's really vital also to know how the teachers are doing. And you mentioned that a little bit about the concern there, am I covering everything? But in this case, talking specifically with mapping, talk to us about reporting in CurriculumTrak. You mentioned a little bit about how you can hop in there and pull up something, but what reports could an administrator pull to see how teachers are doing with mapping their curriculum?
Great question. The teachers don't like this part of CurriculumTrak.
That's okay.
So I can go in and I can pull a progress report on teachers. So where are they in the mapping process? And of course, when new curriculum comes out, when there's been a revision, that's when I'm most sensitive about it, because I want to make sure that I'm supplying the help that the teachers may need in making sure that they're redoing their curriculum map, or they're going in and they're adjusting things. Because sometimes it's little tweaks here and there with the changes, or there's other times that the whole book has been changed. So I want to go in and be that support for my teachers on that, because I know that they have the lesson plans that they're working on and they're doing the instruction day in and day out. So as an administrator, it's important to me to go in and say, okay, how can I help you here? And usually there's a little nuggets that I can give them that will release the pressure from them so much. So when I pull a progress report, I can see how many units they have in there, how many benchmarks, are they uploaded, are their lessons done, are the essential questions completed, and it'll give me a percentage. So it'll say 33% of essential questions. So I know I need to work on that. So when I do my one-to-ones with my teachers, and I try to do that once a month, I'll pull that up. I'll pull the report up and try to make sure before they come in, do they have that done? We chose to go with the lesson planner because I felt like that it would be an easy streamline with the maps and the lessons. And so the lesson planner, I check every week, and I love it. And I'll tell you why I check it, Jenny. Teachers at first thought, oh, she's micromanaging me. And I had to switch that train of thought. And because truly, I want to inspect what they're doing and make sure that they have it done. But I also want to make sure that we're meeting globally across the board, pre-K through 12th grade. I want to make sure that we're meeting the needs and that our curriculum is being used the right way, and if there's any gaps. But the other part is I often will see like, oh, there's a science project going on. They're dissecting a shark next week. So I'll send an email to the teacher like, I see that you're dissecting a shark next Tuesday. I'm there. That's where it started to turn the tide for them. They got to see that I wasn't just looking to see, did they finish it on time? Did they get their lessons in on time? But I was truly investing in what they were teaching in the teaching process, and that I'm interested in it. One fifth grade teacher had a mystery reader, and I didn't know who the mystery reader was. And so I said, can't wait to meet the mystery reader. I'm going to join you on Friday. So I think that puts a smile on their face and lets them know that as an administrator, I'm just not checking off the boxes, but I'm truly getting engaged with them, and I'm championing them in their process as well as teaching.
Yeah, I love how it really streamlines your work too. As administrators, we're all over the place. We're dealing with a lot of things, and often we're in the classrooms when there is an issue, or for just a quick check-in or to watch a lesson, but we don't get the big picture unless we sit and work through those daily lesson plans, those weekly lesson plans. And it sounds like this is such a time saver and makes that really doable for an administrator to look at things quickly and get at them without having to dig through papers and things coming in all different formats. This is one way to get everything all in one place. And that's actually an area that I'm not as familiar with. The lesson planner component wasn't something that I was familiar with. And I'm guessing it's going to perk up the listening ears of our audience. So is there anything else you can tell us about what CurriculumTrak has to offer in the area of lesson planning? You mentioned a little bit from the administrative side. Is there anything else from the teacher side even?
There's a great thing with Lesson Planner. If you go on other schools have given permission that you can use their lesson plans.
Wow.
You can look into their lesson plans and you can see how they map out their lesson plans. BJU is also putting some in. I'll tell you a funny story. I had my first grade teacher. I said, "Oh my goodness, you have really beefed up your components, different components in your lesson plan." And she said, "I love it. BJU did it."
At least she's very honest.
She's very honest.
Hey,
And
educators,
I said,
we
"It's
take
great."
things from anywhere, right?
That's right. But it was so wonderful to know that that was actually a BJU and that she was working it. So there's so much that you can get outside of your school campus and get into other school campuses and see. If a teacher's teaching a subject for the very first time, say they're teaching physics for the very first time, they can go look for a physics class that is being taught by one of the other schools, and they can see the lessons and they can see the format and they can see what they're doing. So that is a key component for me as well, is to allow our teachers to be able to go in and look at the other schools and what they are doing and get ideas from them.
That's amazing. That's incredible. That's really great. And a little plug for those of you who do use BJU Press that we have partnered with CurriculumTrak. And so, yes, we are putting things in there. We do map out each of our courses. There's just a lot to offer, even if you don't use our materials, which of course we hope you will, but check out CurriculumTrak, as you're hearing, these tools can be used so widely. And I love being able to see what others are doing. One of my favorite things is going to other schools and just walking through other people's classrooms. And you think, oh, I forgot about that, or oh, what a great idea. And we can do the same thing with lesson plans. So that's pretty awesome. So obviously, easy access is key for a successful tool. And you've already shared you can get in as an administrator. It sounds like your teachers are using it easily. My access to CurriculumTrak has just been through their website. I've done that a number of times, but I hear they have an app. What can you tell us about the app?
The app has a plethora of information for us. So there's a help section. If you have any questions, you can just ask for help in that area. They have a video library, and they have so many videos already set up for you on how to add in the frameworks, how to add in the benchmarks, how to do the lesson planner, how to set up everything, how to go in and edit it, how to switch things around, how the every summer, usually mid-July, they'll do a lesson plan rollover. It tells you about that. So teachers, when they really get in and they do their lesson plans well, and the curriculum hasn't changed, that lesson planner is rolled over. So it'll give you a video on that, telling you how that process is. There's professional development opportunities and CEU opportunities that you can get through the app. And then there's blogs and podcasts as well that you can get through the CurriculumTrak app. So lots and lots of information. They have really done a great job, Jenny, at really making this very practical for administrators and teachers. I will give another plug on our lesson plans. Our parents can actually go in to our CurriculumTrak and they can see the lesson plans. So we use this for a benefit. You know, days seem shorter and shorter now. And so it's important. Kids that are doing a lot of extracurricular activities and things like that, they'll go home and they'll say, oh, we didn't have any homework, or I was in the bathroom. I don't know what the teacher said we had to do on that. Well, our families are very informed that they could go on to CurriculumTrak. They could pull up the subject and they can look at what was taught that day and what the homework is. They can tell by the week what is going on. So those that may be taking a vacation, or students may be out sick, or something has happened in the family and they had to take a leave of absence, they can go on and continually do their work each day if they feel okay and they can do it. But they can do all of that work each day because they see it right there. It's live right there. Puts a little bit of pressure on the teachers until we can get their mind changed on it. So I tell them, this is it. Those are live documents for our parents. So what's on there? If a student comes in and says, "Oh, Mr. So-and-so, this was my homework from last night," you can't say, "Oh, I changed that," because that's what was on the web. That was what was on the app that the parents looked at. So they have to get credit for what you had current on that. And so it's accountability as well, but it's such a wonderful tool when parents, need to have their kids out for a certain length of time, they can go and pull it up. My daughter, when she went here, she was a cheerleader, and sometimes the varsity team wouldn't get home until 10 or 11 o'clock at night. She would work ahead, Jenny, on Sunday after church. I never had to even say a word to her. She'd go in her room. She would work on her homework the week ahead so that she had it done and she didn't have to worry about it.
Good for her.
Some advantages and disadvantages to that is some things she hadn't learned yet, and she was trying to tackle it on her own. But it helped her when she was in the classrooms and hearing the instruction for the first time to ask more educated questions, because she had already looked at the homework. She had already started working on those concepts. It took a little bit of the fear and anxiety away from her to go ahead and ask the questions, because attempting the homework ahead of time, there was questions that arose and she was able to ask it. So many benefits. I could go on all day long about how I love CurriculumTrak and how it has been so effective here at Meadowbrook and for our teachers. So very honored to be a part of it. Very honored that you would give me this time to even share my heart about CurriculumTrak.
Yeah, that is so incredible. So many features and so many different ways you could apply those in your school. Like, the way you're using it could be different for someone else, same feature, but just hearing what's in there, this is fantastic. That's great. So I hope our listeners are checking out CurriculumTrak even as we're speaking. By the way, listeners, we've included a link to CurriculumTrak in the show notes. So if you haven't already checked it out, you can just go right there and check that out. So as we come to the end of our time today, Tina, I just wondered if you could leave our listeners with something to remember about CurriculumTrak, a takeaway. So maybe a bit of advice, a tip, maybe even one more feature to try to tempt them with. What do you think?
I think I just have to go back to where we serve a God of order.
Yes.
And so when we do things that are in order, there's peace and there's assurance that we can walk through it. And so having CurriculumTrak and having such an amazing tool for administrators and teachers to use, it helps us to be free in the classroom, to be that living curriculum, because we have everything in order. We have everything lined up, mapped out, and then we have the freedom to teach it in such a way that brings God the glory.
That's great. I love it. That's a wonderful wrap up. I love the opportunity to explore educational tools, especially ones that can be widely used and to help streamline our workload. And, CurriculumTrak does have so much to offer. And in addition, there are those extra benefits, one more time, I'm going to say that, to those who use BJU Press materials, and that we already have made that connection with CurriculumTrak. So for those who use our digital platform, you will find digital files of the curriculum maps there for you already. We have put much work into aligning objectives and standards, and we have the tools to help you make those connections as well. Tina, I appreciate so much that you shared from your knowledge and your experience with CurriculumTrak. We can read about educational tools, but nothing beats an endorsement from one of our own. So it's great to hear how you've used it and how it's been helpful at your school. I appreciate you so much taking the time to share with us today.
It was an honor to do it, Jenny. Thank you for asking me.
Thank you for being here. And thank you for joining us today. I hope you were challenged and encouraged as I was. Remember to go to teachereditionpodcast.com to submit questions for upcoming episodes. Of course, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on social media. Now, it's time to get back to your day. But it's not just any day, because every day in the classroom is your day to impact and inspire through God's power and through His grace working in you. Now go do what God has called you to do.